I don't know. We'll see. Every year I'm hopeful. I love hockey. I love playing hockey video games, and I hope they put in the work. So we'll see.
We'll move on to our next topic there with that, and that is the unfortunate news that Henrik Lundqvist has announced his retirement after sitting out the last season following heart surgery. Apparently, he will be due to have another heart surgery at some point in the future. The New York Rangers have announced that they are planning to pretty much immediately retire his number in the upcoming season. We have talked about Henrik Lundqvist quite a bit on this show, and before we get into any other form of debate, I mean, there's pretty much no denying that he was, I mean, alongside other guys that we'll mention here soon, but he was one of the best goaltenders of his generation.
Yeah. He was, I mean, I think you could say in that generation of players, because I don't know, I kind of count Waugh and Brodeur as in the prior generation.
Yeah.
You could definitely say he was a top 3 goaltender, without a doubt.
Yeah. So, I mean, he finishes his career with 459 wins, which, I mean, again, it's we're going to have to get into this debate, but that amount of wins puts Lundqvist 6th all time in the NHL, behind Belfour, Luongo, Fleury, Waugh, and Brodeur, which Roberto Luongo joked on Twitter, let's start a podcast called Two Goats, No Cups. It brings, you cannot talk about Henrik Lundqvist essentially and how great of a career he had without, again, getting into that debate of Hockey Hall of Famer or not. And I think it's incredibly interesting because we have had this conversation before about how the voting typically goes for goaltenders when it comes to making the Hockey Hall of Fame. You look at the most recent goaltenders in the last 20 years to be inducted. 2020 class had Kim St. Pierre, who's one of the best goaltenders of all time, not just female goaltenders of all time. You then had Martin Brodeur in 2018, which was obvious, all the hardware. You had Rogi Vachon in 2016, 3-time Cup winner, if I'm not mistaken. Dominik Hasek in 2014 would have been interesting had he never gone to Detroit and won a Stanley Cup, but ultimately he did. So that certainly helped the argument. You could argue that he would have been there regardless, but 2 Stanley Cups made it undeniable. And then you get into Ed Belfour. Stanley Cups for one Ed Belfour, if I am not mistaken, of course. He happened to win it in 1999. So you look here at that trend, and there are other goalies, of course. Patrick Waugh, all the cups. Grant Fuhrer in 2003, 5 cups. And that's it. Those are the only goalies in the last 20 years who have made the Hockey Hall of Fame. To my point, we go back to the all-time wins list, where Lundqvist is 6th. Brodeur, number 1, Hall of Fame. Waugh, number 2, Hall of Fame. Marc-Andre Fleury, number 3. He will be in the Hall of Fame. He has all the cups. Belfour was 5th, Hall of Fame. You have Luongo in 4th, Lundqvist in 6th. And based off of how the Hall of Fame votes, I still don't know. And again, we've said this before in our opinions, and DH, correct me if I'm wrong, both Luongo and Lundqvist should be Hockey Hall of Fame goalies.
Yeah, I agree.
The big question, if Roberto Luongo, who will be up for induction before Lundqvist, obviously, if Luongo makes the Hockey Hall of Fame, Henrik Lundqvist will make the Hockey Hall of Fame. My opinion, at least. But there's still a question over whether or not either of these two make it. And you mentioned the best goalies of a generation. You talk about the top 4 of this generation. It's Fleury, Lundqvist, Price, Luongo. Fleury is the only one we can be certain about because he has a Stanley Cup. That's not saying that the other 3 goalies aren't fantastic and aren't worthy of being in the Hall of Fame, but how the Hall of Fame works and how strict they are, they do look for hardware. I don't know if Luongo or Hank make it like they should.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll find out. I think they will become more lax about letting goalies in just because there are so few in the Hall of Fame. So we'll see.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, keep an eye on whenever Roberto Luongo is up for induction, because, like I said, if he makes it, I'd imagine Henrik Lundqvist would have to make it as well. And for Hank, again, just could sit here and praise Henrik Lundqvist pretty much all day. I mean, again, a 7th-round pick in 2000, a career .918 save percentage. It's still absolutely absurd, of course, that he only won one Vezina in his career. Like, that's a travesty. But, of course, he had some incredibly stiff competition. But, I mean, he's someone who, you know, in this time, like you look back 2015-16, he got a decent amount of Hart votes. Same thing in 2012-13. And, I mean, the Rangers came close, obviously, to a Stanley Cup. And had they won that, it would be absolutely undeniable to pretty much anybody. But it is just a shame to see his career end this way. Not exactly on his terms. You know, it ends... I mean, obviously, like his Rangers tenure as well, like it ends with the buyout, which I don't think anybody really thought would happen. It was a possibility, but it ends with a buyout. And then, oh, okay, he'll go to Washington. And then obviously the health concerns. It's just kind of, I mean, I guess no one, how many players get to end things at the top of the mountain, right? Like you talk about like Ray Bourque, Mark Recchi. There aren't too many guys that get to finish their career on an extreme high note, as sad as that is.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's incredibly rare. And I think, I mean, that's why I feel like every time somebody finishes their career on a high note, it becomes an immortalized sports moment. It's just because it's incredibly rare.
Yeah. So, Henrik Lundqvist, hell of a career, will hopefully end up being a hockey Hall of Famer like he deserves. Like Deej said, hopefully they lighten up on the rules a little bit there. Other quick hits here as well. Speaking of jersey retirements, Chris Pronger getting his number retired by the Blues on January 17th. So an interesting way that I don't know, interesting career there as well. Hockey Hall of Famer already, if I'm not mistaken, there too. So good on the Blues for that. Travis Sanheim, it kind of continues our trend of talking about defensemen here. Travis Sanheim has re-signed with the Philadelphia Flyers. 2 years, $4.7 million cap hit. And I think that's fantastic. I mean, pretty much. Like I view it as right now they have basically everybody signed now. 4.7. Technically, according to Cap Friendly, the projected cap space before the Sanheim deal is added is at $4 million, just about even. So it looks like they might be a little bit over, unless there's, again, some different cap maneuverability or someone ends up on IR. But the roster has 14 forwards, 6 defensemen, 2 goalies factored in. So it looks like there could be a tiny bit of overage there, but this will pretty much be the last move that the Flyers make. And, I mean, it gives them now a defense of Sanheim, Provorov, Ellis, Ristolainen, and then probably Braun and Yandel. God help the Flyers if they don't make the playoffs this year, because it was a disaster enough to not make it last year, and you could argue this team is better than they were. Yeah,
absolutely.
And
yeah,
go ahead.
I don't know. No, yeah, I think they are. They just needed to be better than they were. So
I think too, it's kind of hit that tipping point where it's like, okay, let's see some playoff success for that core again. It's been a little bit. So speaking of playoff success, and well, a team that's not likely to have any, Calgary signed Nikita Zadorov to a 1-year deal worth $3.75 million. Yeah, the loss of Mark Giordano, and now this defense is Hanifin, Anderson, Tanev, Zadorov, probably Valimaki and Shillington. They still apparently don't have a backup goalie listed on roster on Cap Friendly. So I'd be a little bit afraid if I was a Flames fan over what could come next, because they still haven't blown up that core.
Yeah, I mean, you got to imagine a sizable defenseman like Zadorov does well in a Daryl Suter coach system. So,
and if he doesn't, then what does that say?
It says that he's going to the KHL.
He's coming home. It's coming home. Unfortunately, it's Nikita Zadorov. So have fun with that. There was a really weird buyout as well that I wanted to bring up, as Detroit bought out the last year of Franz Nielsen's deal, and I don't know why. He had 1 year left at $5.25 million, but for Detroit, they don't have to sign anybody outside of Philip Hronek, and he wasn't going to be looking at a $12 million contract. So with